Today we're deconstructing a really powerful mental model from one of the most influential builders in tech. We're talking about the Collison Framework for engineering velocity.
Let's just dive right in, because this single quote, it captures the entire philosophy. I want you to picture it. The year is 2010. You're a developer, maybe an entrepreneur, and you're trying to build something cool on the internet. You have this amazing idea, you've built a beautiful website, but now you need to do the one thing that matters: get paid. And you just hit a brick wall, a wall made of paper, of bureaucracy. Merchant account applications, underwriting reviews, endless calls with banks, faxes, compliance checks. It was a month-long legal and financial nightmare. The whole global financial system moved at the speed of a glacier. It was this tangled mess designed to protect old institutions, not to empower new creators. And then, into this world walks Patrick Collison. He looks at this mess and he doesn't see a problem that needs a bigger bank or a better lawyer. He sees a problem of pure friction. He sees a system that is fundamentally, painfully slow. And he has this realization that changes everything. The ultimate power in this new economy wasn't going to belong to the institution with the biggest faults, but to the person who could just eliminate all that friction with blinding speed. This is the story of how that obsession turned a month-long nightmare into just 7 lines of code, and in doing so, changed how money moves on the internet forever.
So here's the game plan for breaking this all down. We're going to start with that defining moment, the 7 lines of code. Then we'll rewind a bit to see how this whole mindset was forged by impatience. From there, we'll get into his core philosophy, friction is a tax. Then we'll get practical with the system of speed, his day-to-day habits. We'll see the massive impact in rewriting the economy. And then finally, we'll bring it all back to you with your code for greatness.
Okay, let's kick things off with the founding of Stripe. And look, this is way more than just another startup story. This is the origin story of a completely radical approach to building, where speed isn't just, a nice feature, it's the entire product.
This just completely flips the whole idea of power on its head, right? For centuries, authority came from your legacy, from these huge institutions, from gatekeepers who made things intentionally complex so only they could navigate them. Collison inverted that completely. He basically said, no, real, undeniable authority in the digital age belongs to the person who can take a massive, intimidating system and just boil it down to its simplest, most elegant form. This wasn't just disruption for the sake of it. It was a calculated, systematic exercise in accelerating the economy. He decided to weaponize velocity, to engineer solutions so fast and so simple that it actually felt like magic.
So this brings us to what the Collison Framework really is. It's a mindset that reframes a feeling we all have. You know, that frustration with slow, clunky, inefficient systems, the bureaucracy, the endless paperwork. We usually just sigh and accept it as part of life. Collison saw it totally differently. He saw that feeling, that deep, gnawing impatience, not as some character flaw, but as a compass, a signal that was pointing directly at the biggest opportunity for innovation. He believed that if you could harness that impatience, if you could turn it from this passive frustration into a relentless obsession with removing friction, it becomes your single greatest advantage, your most lethal professional weapon. But where in the world did this intense, world-altering impatience come from?
To really get the framework, we have to go back, way back. Before Stripe, before Silicon Valley, back to his ordinary world in rural Ireland. Because in its own way, that was the perfect place for this philosophy to be born. So picture this. You're a teenager, and your mind is moving at the speed of light, but you're living in this small, quiet village. The pace of life is slow, it's deliberate, it's traditional. The source material calls this an intellectual siege, where his boundless ambition was basically trapped by geography. And his escape wasn't TV or video games, it was the local library. And in the quiet of that library, he wasn't just reading books. He was building this internal fortress of engineering logic, a world inside his own mind that ran on pure reason, efficiency, and speed. A universe with no red tape, no unnecessary delays. It was a powerful, stark contrast to the world outside his door. And this is where he first learned that the only thing limiting his progress was the speed of his own learning.
And this internal mindset, it quickly exploded into real-world action. By 16, he wasn't just playing with code, he was mastering famously complex programming languages like Lisp, just drawn to their pure logic and power. His talent got him into MIT, the absolute pinnacle of tech schools. But once he got there, he felt this crushing weight of what he called academic latency. The pace of the institution, the lectures, the curriculum, it was all just too slow for someone who had already built their own engine for learning. So in 2007, at just 19 years old, he drops out and sells his first company, Octomatic. This wasn't just about the money, it was a profound declaration of independence. He was actively choosing his own speed over the world's most prestigious credentials.
So here's the crucial point. His early isolation, his lack of a network, that actually became his greatest strength. He didn't have connections to call or some corporate ladder to climb, so he couldn't afford to wait around for someone to give him permission. He just had to build. He had to execute. He had to rely completely on his own speed and the quality of his work. And this forged in him this deep-seated belief in what you might call impatient sovereignty, the idea that you are the sole authority over your own momentum. He systematically unlearned the habit of asking for permission, realizing that when you're trying to make a real impact, frictionless execution is the only thing you can truly control. This self-reliance became the bedrock for everything that happened next.
And this is the moment everything clicks. His personal experience hardens into this universal philosophy. He crosses the threshold from just being an impatient builder to becoming an architect with a clear, radical vision for how the world ought to work.
This right here is Collison's landmark thesis. Friction is a tax on progress. Let's just break that down for a second. A tax is an involuntary fee, right? It's levied on a transaction and it makes it more expensive and slows it down. Collison argues that every extra meeting, every unnecessary sign-off, every convoluted process, every single bit of friction is a direct tax on your momentum, on your creativity, on your potential. It just drains your energy. And that second line is the critical insight. Every step added for the appearance of security is a loss of power. He's arguing that our corporate obsession with these complex, safe-looking processes is usually an illusion. It makes people feel secure, sure, but what it actually does is drain our power, our speed, and our ability to make a real impact. It's a trade-off we make all the time without even thinking about it, sacrificing actual progress for just the feeling of control.
Now, this core idea is supported by 3 key beliefs that he basically baked into Stripe's DNA. First, assumed latency rejection. This means the default assumption is always that things can and should be instant. Any delay in a system isn't a fact of life, it's a bug that needs to be found and destroyed. Second, radical progress. This is a flat-out rejection of slow, incremental, designed by committee change. Instead, it's about making bold leaps forward, driven by first principles thinking and ruthless simplification. And third, the office as a laboratory for truth. For him, a company isn't a place for politics or protecting your turf, it's a place to run experiments, test ideas with real data, and relentlessly search for the fastest, most effective path to the right answer. The best idea wins, period. Doesn't matter who it came from.
So this poses a direct challenge to all of us. Think about your own work, your own life. We're all taught to make the safe choice, the one with more steps, more approvals, more meetings. But what if that safety is an illusion? What if the true cost of that choice, when you measure it in lost time, lost momentum, and lost opportunity, is actually way higher than the risk of just moving fast and fixing things as you go? What if, in a world that changes this quickly, being slow is the most expensive, most dangerous choice of all?
Okay, so a powerful philosophy is great, but it's useless if you don't put it into action. So this is how Collison built that mindset into a tangible daily system. This is where the rubber meets the road. Where his allies were elegant code and clear writing, and his enemies were bureaucracy and ambiguity.
His most famous operational habit is what we can call the API protocol. It's a simple, repeatable, 3-step process for dismantling any complex problem. Step 1, identify a complicated, friction-filled process. For him, it was online payments. For you, it could be anything. Step 2, break it down with ruthless discipline to its absolute simplest logical core. What has to happen for this to work? Strip away everything else. And then, step 3, the most important one. Engineer a solution so simple, so clean, so elegant that the person using it feels an almost physical sense of relief.
I mean, just look at the contrast here. It's night and day. On one side, you've got the traditional bureaucratic way of getting paid online. Weeks of legal review, tons of PDF forms, compliance meetings, technical integration calls. It's a mountain of friction designed to protect the institution. And on the other side, you have Collison's approach, 7 lines of code. Copy, paste, you're done. One approach creates work for lawyers and admins, the other creates velocity for builders and creators. One is designed to say no by default, the other is engineered to say yes instantly. The difference isn't just a number, it's a completely different philosophy of who the system is supposed to serve.
And this is my favorite part. The goal was never just about technical efficiency. It was emotional. He was explicitly aiming for a physical reaction of relief. He wanted a developer who had been bogged down for weeks trying to navigate the old system to see Stripe's solution and literally exhale. Because he knew that if he could engineer that feeling, if the user could viscerally feel the speed and the simplicity, the battle was already won. It's a deeply human-centered approach to engineering, where the user's emotional state is the #1 metric of success.
Now, this protocol didn't exist in a vacuum, right? He supported it with other cultural habits that created what the source calls foundational velocity. He started an internal wiki audit, a relentless culture of clear, written documentation, which made information transparent and instantly accessible, cutting down on wasted time. He championed historical reading, encouraging engineers to study why old systems were built the way they were, not to copy them, but to understand their flawed assumptions and dismantle all that legacy noise. And finally, a culture of instant iteration, constantly shipping small updates. Every fast, small improvement was a direct, tangible threat to the slow, monolithic nature of bureaucracy.
So what's the result of all this? A personal philosophy and a set of habits, that's one thing. But their impact on the world, well, that's the ultimate prize. He came back from this intellectual journey with a gift that would fundamentally rewire the global economy.
The payoff was this profound transformation for him and for the internet. The library-bound child from rural Ireland became the architect of a new economic infrastructure, what some people now call the GDP of the internet. But it's more than that. He became the architect of a new moral conscience for progress. He championed the idea that building things that are fast, simple, and empowering isn't just good business, it's a moral imperative. It unlocks human potential on a global scale by lowering the barrier for everyone to participate in the digital economy.
So here's the bottom line. Patrick Collison's legacy is the definitive, undeniable proof that in the modern world, speed beats scale. Period. He proved that an elegant 7-line snippet of code built on a fanatical devotion to velocity could be more powerful and more influential than a century-old financial institution with all its marble columns and history. He shattered the myth that complex equals safe and replaced it with a new, uncomfortable truth. Unvarnished velocity is the new standard for stability and growth. And that brings this whole story directly to you.
Because this framework isn't just about building a multi-billion-dollar company, it's a guide for anyone out there feeling slowed down, constrained, or just frustrated by an old system. This is the part of the journey where you return, armed with this new knowledge.
So, how do you actually apply this? The goal is to find your own 7 lines. Here's how. First, identify one task in your work or your life that you've just accepted as slow. That weekly report that takes hours, that bureaucratic process you have to follow, that clunky software you put up with, find it. Second, ask a really powerful question. What would happen if I committed with Collison's level of obsession to finding the ultimate speed and simplification here? What would a 10 times faster solution even look like? And third, just take one small step. Stop passively accepting the system. Start thinking like an engineer of velocity. The moment you do that, you stop being a victim of friction and you become the master of your own progress.
I want to leave you with this one final thought. The idea that things have to be slow, that they must be complicated, that bureaucracy is some unavoidable law of nature, that's just a story we've been told. It's not the truth. It's a choice. Friction is a lie that we collectively agree to believe. And your ability to see through that lie, to relentlessly pursue velocity, and to passionately simplify the complex, that, right there, is the code for your greatness.